We embrace the diversity of our community and acknowledge the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we honour Australian Defence Force service and sacrifice. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. On the 11th of November in 1934, King George V's son, Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester, a veteran of World War I, stood on the southern steps of the Shrine of Remembrance before over 300,000 Victorians and said, "This noble shrine has been erected as a symbol of gratitude to those who fought for us. They fought to secure for the world the blessing of peace. It is for us to seek to repay their devotion by striving to preserve that peace and by caring for those that have been left bereaved or afflicted by the war." Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Commander Jan Gallagher. I am a Shrine Governor. And on behalf of the trustees, the governors and the wider Shrine family, I would like to welcome you to the Shrine today, either in person or via our online link, and I thank you for participating in this service. And now, because Terry's away, I am dual-hatted and I'm also the MC. Okay, I'd like to welcome you here today. This is the commemoration service for the Far East Strategic Reserve. We have with us today Commodore Greg York, AM CSC. We have Warrant Officer Grogan, OAM. And we have Lieutenant Jason Tomlin from the Royal Australian Navy. I'll ask Warrant Officer Grogan to do the reading.
We offer our heartfelt thanks for the well-being of our Commonwealth, for the devoted lives of those who have made our people great and free, for deliverance from civil strife and bloodshed, from the craft and power of foreign foes, and for the sacred trust of the seas. May we treasure our great inheritance. We give thanks for all who have sacrificed their lives in the service of our country at sea. May their sacrifice strengthen our resolve to build communities of trust and inclusion. We give thanks for all who have served our country and have suffered as a result of war. Grant that they may be freed from depression and bitterness and find relief for all their distress and pain in the knowledge of our care and support. We are thankful for the community support towards those serving in the Royal Australian Navy at home and overseas. Give them courage and comfort in danger, patience in waiting, and discipline in the just use of force. Help us to seek for all people the freedom to live in peace and with compassion. May we be worthy of their service and sacrifice. Thank you.
I'd now like to ask Lieutenant Jason Tomlin, Royal Australian Navy, to do the address.
I'd like to acknowledge Lieutenant Commander Jan Gallagher, Shrine of Remembrance Governor, the President and members of the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve Naval Association, distinguished guests, fellow shipmates, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Jason Tomlin, a serving member of your Royal Australian Navy based at HMAS Cerberus. It is indeed an honour and a privilege to be here today, and of special importance to me as my father served in the Malayan jungles in the early 1960s as part of the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve. Today's service is important to promote awareness of and maintain the memory of the significant contribution of nearly 30,000 Australian and New Zealand Defence personnel. They served in the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve over a 16-year period from 1955 to 1971. Less than 3 years after World War II ended, communist terrorists began a campaign to destabilise Malaya. Subsequently, after several prominent figures in political and private circles had been killed in cold blood, the Malayan emergency was formally declared in June 1948. In 1950, Australia sent Royal Australian Air Force support, including a heavy bomber squadron and a transport squadron to be based in Singapore for the operations in Malaysia. In 1955, after 5 years of further deterioration, Australia formally committed forces from all three services. to the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve in response to a request from the British government for assistance to protect British Malaya, now known as Malaysia, against the continued insurgency of communist terrorists. The primary role of the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve was to deter further communist aggression in Southeast Asia. The area involved was Malaya, Singapore, and the sea lanes around them. When deployed, considerable time was spent exercising at sea, testing the men, the equipment for the roles that they would be called upon to fulfil in the event of conflict. Some ships took part in shore bombardments against terrorist positions along the coastline. Navy's secondary role was to create a blockade against the supply of arms and ammunition to the terrorists. The blockade was successful and denied them any effective use of the sea throughout the period. The Royal Australian Navy's contribution was to be 2 ships, an aircraft carrier on annual visit and additional ships if required in an emergency. Subsequently, in June 1955, HMAS ships Warramunga and Arunta became the first Royal Australian Navy ships deployed to the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve, with many other warships to follow. From the period 1955 to 1971, a total of Australian 26 warships and the respective ships companies served in the region, many with multiple tours of duty. Sadly, 7 Royal Australian Navy personnel died on operational service, including 2 killed off the coast of Malaysia in 1957, and the others were lost due to illness and accidents whilst on deployment. We mourn their loss today and thank them for their service to our country and the allies we helped to protect. Service with the Strategic Reserve was no doubt often arduous. Life at sea in the tropics was occasionally dangerous, but seldom pleasant in the mess decks that had no air conditioning and cramped conditions relative to modern standards. Deployment periods were typically 6 to 9 months, and communication back then were limited compared to today. Royal Australian Navy activities including bombardment of enemy positions, patrols and blockades along the Malayan Borneo coastlines, air operations, interception of seaborne insurgents and covert intelligence operations. The Far East Strategic Reserve remains one of the longest operational defence commitments by the Australian and New Zealand Armed Forces in the history of the nation. Within this, there were 2 particularly hostile periods: the Malayan emergency from 1955-1960, the Borneo-Indonesian confrontation of 1962 to 66. Sadly, it took almost 30 years until 2000 for the Australian government to formally recognise service of the 18,000+ personnel who served in the Malayan emergency and Borneo and Indonesian confrontation. The Far Eastern Strategic Reserve story is etched in the hearts and minds of those who served. Today we meet here today to say thank you for those who served in the Far Eastern Strategic Reserve, including their widows and families. They are not and will not be forgotten, lest we forget.
Shrine Guard, take post. Remembrance Party will now lay their wreaths. Lieutenant Tomlin will lay the wreath for the Royal Australian Navy. President of the FESR, Mr Wayne Gwynn, will lay the wreath for the FESR Association. Commodore York, RAN, will lay the wreath for the Naval Association of Australia. Warrant Officer Grogan will lay the wreath for the Naval Commemorative Committee of Victoria. For all those people that have a poppy in their hand, you're now invited to do your own payments as we remember those members of your family or ancestors who may take us to their names. We'll just wait for them to. Wait till they all sit down. Can't hear that. That's all right. There's that. Yeah. Oh, you got it. Good.
Ode to the sailors. They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. Ode to the fallen. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Guard, dismount. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of today's service. The same service next year, hopefully same date, will be at 11 a.m. Thank you very much.
Jan, that's the rifle that I...
No, not the little style. No.